It was big too.
Yeah, that was huge. Yeah, so she was on this sick run. And you know what's interesting too is she had a major run, right? She did Pretty Woman, she did Steel Magnolias, Pretty Woman, Sleep with the Enemy. But then she had some trouble with The Player. Pelican Brief was a hit, but then she did I Love Trouble, Ready to Wear, Something to Talk About, Mary Riley, Michael Collins. Those, Everyone Says I Love You, those weren't hits. But then she hit big again with My Best Friend's Wedding, and then went to Notting Hill. That movie was like another $300 million movie. And then she did Runaway Bride in 99. And I don't know if you remember this, but we watched Blair Witch Project at like 2 a.m. one time, got out. I got a few hours of sleep, and I went back the next day on a Friday, because we saw it on a Thursday, went on a Friday, the advanced screening. And that was the weekend where every single theater was sold out because everybody went to go watch Blair Witch and Runaway Bride. So the entire theaters were sold out because, oh, no tickets for those? I'll just get a ticket for this. So every theater was packed. The entire lobby was packed. It was the busiest day. I did like a 12-hour day that day. And that's why, like, Julia Roberts packed out theaters in 99. Then she did Erin Brockovich, which won her an Oscar. That's like A++ flexing right there.
I was thinking about that. Is there anyone today that is near that level of stardom that Julia Roberts hit in the 90s?
No. And
because it's mostly ensemble movies right now. The biggest movies are mostly ensemble.
And like, let's think about it. We could say that Robert Downey Jr. is the biggest star in the world, but it's Iron Man, right? It's Chris Hemsworth, but it's Thor. The names now that are big, there's like Dwayne Johnson. Kevin Hart had an insane run with his comedies. Right. I mean, he was all right. So I would say Melissa McCarthy, because I did this for a verse video. I forget which one I had to do it about, just epic runs. And if you go on Rotten Tomatoes, we did a Julia Roberts versus Sandra Bullock verse video. Those two had insane runs. You should go watch that video. But I would say it's Melissa McCarthy because she was doing movies like Identity Switch making 100 mil and that Tammy movie making 80 mil, all rotten. Like, people just wanted to go see her in anything. So it wasn't like she was Thor.
After Spy. Spy just shot her into stardom.
Yeah, I mean, that's next level. That's a beautiful film, and that made over 100 mil. So she has been really impressive, I would say. And then also, I think, Kevin Hart. I mean, the ride-along movies, Night School. So he was doing these movies. Like, he wasn't doing Marvel, but he was still clearing 100 mil at the box office. So I would say those two, as far as getting butts in seats for non-Marvel movies, comic book movies, or Star Wars movies, they had a pretty good run this decade.
I would say maybe in the past decade, in the early 2000s, you had Will Ferrell and Ben Stiller. I mean, they had a string of comedies that were pretty epic.
Yeah, his Talladega Nights.
Like, what's the latest Will Ferrell comedy? I'm in.
Yeah, because he had Elf, and then he had Old School. He was making checks. he was billing it. Yeah, Stiller too. He had the Fockers, Meet the Parents, and Tropic Thunder. So yeah, I guess it's just kind of comedy in there. But I mean, this doesn't really happen too much anymore. And yeah. I just like, I know this is weird, but I think these runs in the 90s should be respected because this was big. I mean, Notting Hill was like, that exploded in theaters. So I think
it was funny because it was almost the opposite of Pretty Woman. It's like role reversal.
the rich actress meets the oopsie daisy
the frumpy bookstore owner. It was, I mean, literally it was, they just took Pretty Woman and flipped it around. And then Runaway Bride was so incestuous too, because she was dating a writer in that one and she was afraid of commitment. And it was like, I actually watched Runaway Bride again after My Best Friend's Wedding just to watch some extra movies. And there's so many of the same themes. You know, I hope people didn't get burned out on some of these same recurring themes that she's done. I mean, at Runaway Bride, okay, you got fear of commitment, you got dating the writer. Speaking of writers, I think there should be a moratorium on actors being cast as writers in movies.
Yeah. It's
Michael
annoying.
was a sports writer. I still don't know what kind of sports writer he was, if he was like a beat reporter or like what he was doing. Richard Gere was a columnist for USA Today. Then wait, what are some other ones? Matthew McConaughey was a ad executive. Oh yeah, ad executives are big too in How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days.
And she was a writer, correct?
You're right. Yeah, she was the writer. You're right.
Yeah.
Hitch had Eva Mendes. was the gossip writer. Drew Barrymore was the reporter undercover and never been kissed.
Back in the day, I think that's just such a well-worn. I was thinking about this too, like the old school comedies. They were writers that they talked real fast and they wrote their articles, and it just seems like a well-worn trope. And also, do you think it seems like a nice, not a Trojan horse, that's a wrong word, but the writing is a good way to get people into these things. So, hey, you're a writer, go talk to this billionaire playboy undercover and get this article to me. I guess it's a good way to get A to B.
Yeah, and I think there's this thought that if you're a writer, you're automatically witty. You're kind of a rogue. You think for yourself. So there's these different personality traits that work well with it. And there's also either the threat or the promise at the end of a story, where someone's narrating the story while the other video is going on.
Yeah, you can have them writing it. So what I learned is...
yeah, advances the storyline.
Yeah, no, and I wish I had these writers' lives because they never write in these movies. I'm going to be up tonight till like 11:30. I'm getting up at 6:30.
It's not as sexy as they make it sound. Like, yeah. Richard Gere spent 2 weeks in this small town in Maryland for the story. I mean, who's got 2 weeks to spend on a single story?
He has a mansion probably too. It's just...
He was driving a sports car. I mean, what columnist drives sports cars around and spend 2 weeks on a story? That's just not how it happens.
Homer Eisenhower, right? Homer Eisenhower, Ike Graham was that his name? Richard Gere? Yeah, he's just the rock star writer. But it's a good way to get people's foot in the door. It's just, and I guess, what's interesting, the writing with Dermot Mulroney in this kind of makes sense because he has to travel around.
And it gave him a reason why he never settled down with her either.
Yeah.
He was following his career.
So I guess that's somewhat organic.
He got bagged on a lot for this movie. I thought he got bagged on more than anyone else for just being this kind of boring character. But I disagree, because everyone can't be Julia Roberts. Everyone can't have the charisma of Cameron Diaz. So he can't be over the top because you have all these other great characters in this movie. And I thought what was interesting about him is he was an active participant in the story. He let the door open for her a couple times.
Yeah.
To say what she really wanted. So he was an active participant. He wasn't just swept along in this story. And that's what I appreciate about his character, because he was thinking. You could tell he was thinking.
He's not a total Baxter, which is nice. Like he gets what she's doing, I think. Don't you think so? Like
I mean, if you had two beautiful women pining over you, I mean, you'd probably entertain it too. I mean, I've noticed he's wanted to do a sequel for 20 years now to this movie. I can see why. But I thought he was better than the critics made him out to be.
Yeah, I don't like that narrative nowadays. We're like, just that boring guy. But the thing is, the movies, I think he just had to do enough, right? Sure. And also, what's interesting, like if he was super dynamic though, so. I think the character, there's interesting levels to the guy, but if he was super dynamic, then you can understand why the two have been friends for this long, or why she dumped him, or she kind of owns him a little bit. Roberts
he's
does.
Normal.
Yeah.
They did a good job casting someone who is for the most part normal.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't like, Chris Evans as a sports writer.
Yeah. I got to get that story.
Yeah.
My Red Sox are in town.
Yeah. So he was good, and it was believable.
But you're right. I mean, the star of this movie was Julia Roberts. So totally. You just need someone credible enough to be in these scenes, comfortable enough, and he had been in a ton of movies before this, and also. I think the director started really liking Rupert Everett, and the director really liked what Cameron Diaz was doing, and so when. There's nothing wrong with being the subtle person in a movie. When
is that a criticism that you played as straight when you got all these stars around you? That doesn't mean you're bad. It just means that they're incredible.
Yeah, it means like you're. Yeah, so I think some people do confuse that, where they see a totally serviceable, good performance, and he held his own with Roberts. He held his own in there.
He did, definitely.
And so, but the thing is, he wasn't as bubbly. But what's interesting with Diaz too, though, she didn't fall into really any tropes too. She she handled her. I think a lot of her happiness seemed like a facade to just seem really happy around Roberts, and she was genuinely excited. I think a good person. But there's
she
more
didn't know how to
than,
act. You could tell she didn't know how to act. She was uncomfortable.
'Cause you're 20.
She tried to get in on their stories. Yeah, she's 20 years old.
I love Florence. Like that. And Roberts knew what she was doing, man. Roberts was, or I keep bouncing between the names, but y'all get it. She was, whew, I felt so bad.
Yeah, there's a lot of knife twisting, and there was a lot of moments that just made it hard to watch.
Mm-hmm. That singing part, though, that really, I didn't see that coming, the karaoke bit. When she just won everybody over.
It was so memorable.
And they played it real. She sang that, and she hated it. And the director actually made, he's like, we're playing this. And she actually did it. So
it was so believable because it was actually her, and she actually doesn't like singing. And she's a self-admitted, I mean, she can't be great at everything. You know, she's not the best singer in the world, but she had the moxie and she pulled it off.
I do feel it makes me have faith in humanity, though, because the first two people were like, shut up. But then everyone just went, yes, this is amazing. Own it.
That saying is you don't go to karaoke to watch your friends sing well.
Yeah.
You go to karaoke to see your friends sing bad.
No, you know, that's funny because I remember we used to do karaoke in Tallahassee when we were there. And I remember people that really took it seriously. Like, I'm going to put a 3 Doors Down song and I'm going to belt out Kryptonite. Like, I'm here without you, baby. And they do a serviceable job, but you're just going, I just watched a less great version of 3 Doors Down. It's
just a very average performance.
Yeah.
It's like maybe you're getting too into this, you know, just dial it back a little bit.
I appreciate that they put themselves out there and went up and sang, but also you and I, like we had more fun. I mean, we don't really have good voices, so we couldn't sing 3 Doors Down. Well, even if we tried. So
that's one of the easier ones to sing because the guy's vocal range isn't.
I'm here without you, baby. Yeah, I would just do Blink-182.
Yeah, that's an easy one.
All right, so how about this? Hey, let's take a quick break, and then when we come back, we will talk more My Best Friend's Wedding. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Movies, Films, and Flicks. And Eric, you're locked out of your hotel room in the Drake Hotel in Chicago right now, aren't you?
Just gonna light a cigarette, lean against this door, and hope Paul Giamatti strolls down the hallway.
Imagine that, right? I doubt Giamatti ever stays. He could probably stay at the Drake. I bet Giamatti could now. But imagine being at the Drake and you're sitting outside your door and just Giamatti strolls by. That's fate.
That would be. I don't know what I would say to him. With the different streams between reality and the movie converging, I don't think it would dawn on me that it actually happened.
But just go, my best friend's wedding, and then just go, hey.
The standard where you just yell the movie at the person.
Hey, Giamatti, look at the camera.
Giamatti, do you have a cigarette?
Yeah. Hey, this is why I never stayed at the Drake. If you remembered that, though, I bet Giamatti would be down, though. He'd be like, man, this dude's locked outside his hotel room at the Drake. I mean, if you're staying at the Drake, it's a nice hotel. And I like how he dropped that in the voicemail, too. Michael did that.
Yeah, you'd really dig deep for a My Best Friend's Wedding reference if you ever ran into Paul Giamatti. That's like the time you ran into Dolph Lundgren and you mentioned about the movie where he directed, where he was a drummer in the band.
Yeah, he took off his glasses. What's your name? Mark. Nice to meet you. And he shook my hand, and then we just chatted for a little bit. He's like, I gotta catch my private flight. I was like, all right. It started rough, though. He spilled his coffee. He's like, no photos. I'm like, I don't want a photo, man. I'm just saying I'm a big fan. I like the new Universal Soldier movies. Command Performance. I dig it. Can't wait to see what you do next. He looked shocked there. He just went, wait, what?
You saw Command Performance?
Yeah, exactly. And normally, I bet he's just used to people yelling Drago or something. So then here's this dude.
You.
Yeah, exactly. Here's this dude that's an actual fan. And he shook my hand. What's your name? It was cool. It was good.
Shaking hand, it seems so weird now. Like you never shake someone's hand these days.
But he stopped. He kind of went, hey, this dude's all right. I didn't tell about Lundgren's front kick. But.
So that's the moral of the story here. If you ever meet a celebrity, dig deep on the movie reference.
Yeah, don't yell the first thing that comes to mind. Truman Joe, or hey Giamatti, sideways, pour me wine.
So you would just walk by and just shake his head.
I bet you some guy